beautiful hearts. Enjoy this week's quantum conversation experience with Peter Tung. Today, Peter reveals the gene keys for the date of February 22nd, 2026, and what awaits us in this powerful year of transformation into New Earth. Enjoy today and join us live tomorrow with Peter Tung on the Summer Solstice Gene Keys. Oh, beautiful hearts. We are so excited to have you here for this presentation with Peter Tung, who is a facilitator of the Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. He is so astute on his wisdom and knowledge and of the Gene Keys that you will find it very beneficial as we're talking about this year and the coming years and the Aquarian human. Hi, Peter. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
It's my absolute pleasure, Lauren, and thank you for having me on this very auspicious day today.
And let's welcome in the year of the fire horse.
Absolutely.
Wow. How has the shift of the year of the snake, the wood snake, moving into this year, how has that been for you?
For me personally,
Mm-hmm.
well, because I've been on this journey for a very long time, over 40 years, it's been relatively straightforward because I am a snake. I'm a water snake. So the shedding of the old snake skins has been happening for me over quite a long time. So because I'm aware of what's happening in the world right now, it's been a relatively easy transition for me to let go of those snake skins that were still clinging on, to clear them out completely, and now breaking through into the fire horse, where there's going to be this really rapid expansion and acceleration, which has just started. So it's a huge moment for everybody. And what we're going to be doing today, we chose this date, Lauren, very deliberately, because this is the first day of a brand new, huge cycle. And let me explain that, because yesterday we had the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, and it's happening at 0 degrees of Aries. The last time these two planets were aligned at 0 degrees Aries was 6,000 years ago. So this is the end of a massive cycle and the beginning of a new one. And 0 degrees of Aries is what's called the world axis. It's the very beginning of the whole astrological wheel. So if you can imagine, today is the first day of the new energy coming in. It's a brand new era, a new epoch. And there are going to be different stages as this unfolds, which I'll explain shortly. So the opportunity that we have been given over the last few months and up to this moment in time is to literally shed those old skins. And it's about the closing down of our old identity, which is no longer going to work in the new Earth energy grid. And Lauren, I know you've had your unbelievable smashing shock of breaking down all the old systems in your network. And it's horrible at the time, but it's really, really important, because you are an archetype of someone who's got a system that's worked very well, but now you're letting it all go, hopefully, and you're doing something differently in the future. And that's what this energy is all about. So you are a glowing example of what is happening in the world today. And because I've got lots of line twos in my gene key profile, my work typically is reflected by the people I'm reacting with. So I tend to see all the challenges in other people's lives, less so in my own, which is nice for me. And it's not all negative. There's some wonderful things happening. There's a lot of wonderful awakening experiences happening on the planet. So again, we've got to be aware of when you have this sudden blissful experience, it can be scary. You can think that you're dissolving away, because you are. You're stepping into the oneness. It's the most magnificent thing that can happen to anyone. But at the time, if you don't know this potential is there, it can be scary. So one of the things we're going to do today is to help people begin to navigate through these new energies as they're coming in. Because it's very important, as I said before we started, there is no future template in place. It's a complete blank slate. It's a fresh canvas. And we as individuals are co-creating the new earth. It's got nothing to do with anyone in a system that already exists. So we are now stepping into the fore of controlling the new energies through our co-creative abilities in our own individual world, which will then become the collective, and then that's what the new earth will look like. And so it's this unity through diversity. And we don't want clones. We want everybody to be true to themselves in this new earth grid. And so it can be very scary and it's very uncertain because it hasn't yet formed, like fresh in the womb of a new beginning. And it's fantastic. But we've got to be comfortable living with uncertainty in this new earth energy.
Wow. Okay, thank you for that. That is comforting. And I say comforting because, yeah, it can be disconcerting. It can be scary. It can be like the world is going to hell in a handbasket.
And it
Get me
is.
out of here. But knowing that we are here to truly now co-create New Earth and to stand in our power, like just to stand. Yesterday, I did a class with empowering the authentic voice, and everyone has such love for this planet that is so hopeful for me and inspiring for me. And we can only see what's going to come from that. So it is very exciting. Letting go is not easy.
Well, we're going to dive into that in a moment. But before we do, just to add to what you've just said, what people need to understand, and you've got that beautiful image behind you to support this, Mother Earth is taking over. She is becoming the center of this new Earth grid. So what we need to do is to align ourselves with Mother Earth's principles and the
Okay.
way in which she's operating. And the closer we align ourselves with her, the easier this will be for us. It's got nothing to do with government. It's got nothing to do with power play systems. It's our deep and profound connection with Mother Earth and humanity. And that's all that matters. And that humanity can just be you on your own, or you with one other person, or you in a small group. Because what people have, a lot of spiritual people have had this energy that they've come to change the world. They've come to make the world a better place, which is wonderful. But that's not it. It's about doing the inner work inside yourself, which will then transform the world. So we don't want to have aggrandizement visions of ourselves. We want to just do that inner work, and it will demonstrate to us what our role is as it plays out. So sitting in our own home, sitting in quiet meditation, connecting to Mother Earth, or going out into nature and spending time with her is fundamentally all we have to do. And the rest will look after itself. It's actually very simple.
It's very simple. Okay. All right. That is beautiful. Thank
So
you.
could you post that first image? Because I want people to see this is what we've got to get over. This is the identities we've got to let go of. Thank you. That's great. So let me explain this. In Gene Keys, we focus on those external sphere, all the numbers going around the outside edge, the 64 gene keys. The 64 gene keys are the genetic makeup inside all of us. And over the course of the year, each gene key gets illuminated by the sun for about 5 or 6 days. So the gene keys focuses on the annual cycle of the 64 gene keys. But human design also focuses on global cycles. And this diagram shows the global cycle which is coming to completion. And it's called the Cross of Planning. And it started in 1615 and it closes next year, 2027. So there are 8 gene keys inside the circle that you can see here. So these are the 8 shadow frequencies that we need to make sure we have released, because this is the end of this cycle. And Richard Rudd calls this year the year of the closing door. And what that means is that all the old patriarchal systems will no longer be supported energetically. They are dissolving, dissolutioning, burning off. And that's why we don't need to give too much attention to it, because it's all being deleted. It's the end of an empire reign. Just like the Roman Empire, the British Empire, it's the end of the patriarchal system empire. So we want to make sure we are not attached to that energy in any way. And these 8 gene keys are telling us what those identities are that we need to release. And the most important gene key in it is the 37th gene key. The 37th gene key you'll see on the left-hand side is the gene key of Christ consciousness. And it was the age of Pisces. And the shadow of the age of Pisces was Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene were supposed to walk the earth as a sacred union couple, anchoring Christ's consciousness in the planet. And the priesthood were not prepared to relinquish authority, so they turned her into a whore and have suppressed the feminine ever since. That's the 37th gene key. And it's all to do with the way in which we do family. So now, Lauren, let's take our way back to the 1950s and the American dream, where the family unit was all about mom stayed at home, she did all the cooking, all the cleaning, looked after the kids, while dad went to work to do his success in life. So the feminine sacrificed herself for the success of the masculine. And that led to the 40th gene key on the right-hand side of exhaustion, because she was exhausted from what she was doing, because she wasn't supported and she wasn't fulfilling her divine destiny. And yet we were led to believe that was the reality that we were in the American dream. It was a con job. So now we've got to make sure we're not hanging on to that old identity. We're now seeing the feminine re-emerging, thank goodness, because the age of Pisces is over. And we're now moving into the age of Aquarius, where the feminine will take a much more important role in the way this works out. Now, one of the sad things that I've seen in the world and in my sessions, which we need to be very aware of, that women who've been successful in that male world become like men. We don't want that. We want the feminine to represent herself as that really rich, creative, concerned, collaborative, empathic person. That's the future human from the feminine point of view. And then the 9 and 16 are those 2 gene keys where the 16 keeps us trapped in our comfort zone, the old structure. Now, I talked about Saturn is one of the key planets in this new Earth grid, beginning this new journey. So Saturn is a 28-year cycle, and it's just completed that Saturn in Pisces just a couple of weeks ago. So now then we've got to let go of old structures that keep us locked into the old comfort zone. And that's where it gets tricky, because now we've got to step out into new structures. Now, the great news is the 16th gene key enables you to create the right structure, but it's got to be the structure that you want for your own future passion. Then the 9th gene key is all about the details. And so the 9th gene key are all the details that we've been led to believe we needed to follow. And that can lead to paralysis of analysis. So now we get stuck in these 2 gene keys. So now then what we're wanting to do to break out of that is to have a bigger vision for our future life, using the details to lead us on that new vision. And Saturn, in this brand new start, is going to enable us to create the structures that we want for ourselves in the future. And because it's conjunct with Neptune, Neptune is all about our spiritual self, our true higher consciousness. So now Saturn is going to enable us to create the appropriate structure for the future. And then the 61, 62, 32, 42, that diagonal cross is called the cross of the illusion. And I'll take you to the 61 first, because the shadow of that gene key is psychosis. So what that means is we have been led to believe something that's not true. We have been mind controlled. And people with the 61st gene key are the people who rail against the system. They already knew it was false. And yet everybody else was telling them it's real. So they get confused, which leads into that psychosis. So now then, anybody who's been trapped by the old world and realized it wasn't the truth can completely relax and know that they've known the truth all along. And then the 62nd gene key is getting stuck in the mind. So now I want to encourage everyone on the call to let go of the need to know. We've got to step out of that and step into the awe and wonder of the mystery of life and allow the synchronicities to guide us on this new journey. Then the 32 and the 42 is the shadow of expectation. So this old world program had certain expectations for us to follow, typically in our families, with our siblings, with our friends, with our school system, with the system itself. Then the 32 is the fear of failing those expectations. But those expectations were never yours in the first place. So again, it's another illusion. So now we've got to recognize that, and now what we have to do is focus really clearly on what our true values are, without any influence from anyone else. So we take all of the wisdom and experience we've gained in the world, and we set ourselves free from anyone else's expectations of who we are. What we are really doing, Lauren, is we are uncovering our true selves, our true, authentic, sovereign self. And that's what is now going to emerge as this unfolds. So those are all the energies and identities that we need to let go of as this moves forward. So can you now move to the other diagram?
Wow. I just want to
Sorry,
say,
not that one.
wow.
That's it. You've got it. That one there. Yeah,
Okay.
right. So this is the really, really important piece that we're going to look at today. This is the new energy coming in. And you'll see it says the cross of the sleeping phoenix from 2027 to 2438. It's another 400-year period. So now this 8 gene keys inside are different. And they are the ones taking over in this new Earth grid. So now this is what we do want to implement in our lives. Now, it's already started. I personally believe it started back on the total solar eclipse in April the 8th, 2024. Because on that date, you'll see in the inner circle, the 51 in the bottom left-hand corner. On that total solar eclipse, there were 5 planetary systems in the 51st gene key. And it's an Aries gene key. And it was the sun, the moon, the earth, the north node, which is our future destiny, and Chiron, the wounded healer. So to me, this kicked off the trigger for the opening into this cross of the sleeping phoenix energy. And as you can see, it actually comes into full embodiment, and it actually happens in February 2027, exactly 1 year from where we are today. And I'm going to show you how I know that in a moment. So now then we look at this diagram, we say, okay, this is why I'm here in this time. What does this mean? So the most important gene key of the whole period is the 55th gene key on the left-hand side. The 55th gene key is the gene key of the age of Aquarius. So this is the gene key that gets activated 1 year from now on February 23, 24, 2027. And we've got this year to fully embody the new Earth grid. That's our plan for this year. So now we look at the other gene keys inside this pattern to see what they represent. So the 59 is the programming partner of the 55, and the shadow of that gene key is dishonesty. So what we're seeing happening on the world is all the dishonesty that's been in the hidden secret realms are now being revealed. There is no hiding place left for anyone. So everything is going to come out. It could be on a personal level, and it's definitely happening on a global scale. So from now on, we must not accept any dishonesty in our lives. And that's dishonesty with ourselves, dishonesty with other people in our lives, and the system itself. And it requires an absolute total transparency, which leads to real intimacy. This 59 and 55 together are the two gene keys that Richard says will bring sacred union couples coming together. And Lauren, I've already had a few sessions where this has already happened, and it's absolutely magnificent, where two people bump into each other completely out of expectation, synchronistically, and they fall madly in love in an instant. And it's because they've got work to do together they could not do on their own. But it's very intense and very powerful, because if they have not done their inner work, they'll get triggered by the other person, because it's to help them evolve further. And sometimes it does work and they clear those energies and it's wonderful. Sometimes it doesn't and they have to separate and find someone else. But that's this time that we're now moving into. And it's very exciting, but it can also be challenging in terms of where you are in current relationship. And then this suddenly happens. And now what do I do? It's a real tricky one. So the 55th gene key is the shadow of victimhood. So this is one of the most important things I'm going to say today. And that is, we have now got to make sure that we are no longer playing the role of victim in our lives. And it's when we drop into the solar plexus, we drop into our emotional body, and we don't take responsibility for whatever's happening out in the world. So we start blaming, complaining, or comparing. And when we do that, we've lost our own center. And we all do it, we're all human. So now the most important thing for us to do over the course of this next year is to catch ourselves in those moments, becoming aware of when we play the role of victim. Richard Rudd loves the pause. You slow down, you breathe, and you take full responsibility for whatever you're complaining about. Because the gift and the city of the 55th gene key is freedom. This is an internal freedom. It's got nothing to do with what's happening in the outer world. It's your own inner freedom for whatever takes place. And then allied to those two are the 34 and 20. And these two together, the 20 is saying to you, it's really important to be grounded in your body, in time and space, becoming very aware of whenever you get scattered, when your thoughts are all over the map, bringing them into the present moment and grounding yourself down in your body. That's the 20th gene key. And when you do that, you gain in self-assurance, self-confidence. And the 34 is, it's great that the Olympics are happening now, because we're seeing all of the 34th gene key performing. The 34th gene key people are the most powerful physical beings on the planet. And the problem with it is that it gets misdirected. So it gets wrapped up in physical activity rather than spiritual alignment. And it makes people try too hard. Well, when you look at the Olympics, you can't see people trying any harder than they are. And it's a great example of what we actually don't want. We don't want that. We want to relax and be in the space of love, no competition, complete collaboration. So the 34th gene key is saying to us, make sure you aren't forcing anything. Allow everything to unfold with ease and grace and follow those synchronicities. Now, this is very important. The diagonal gene keys, the 51, 57, 53, 54, are called the cross of penetration. And let me explain that. The 51 is the gene key of trauma in the shadow. So if you've ever had any trauma in your life, then you're going to tend to want to plate yourself off so you don't have to suffer any similar trauma in the future. We put on a metal plate in front of us to protect ourselves. So the cross of penetration is saying you've reached a place of spiritual maturity because it's now time for you to let go of that metallic plate, that barrier that you're wearing in front of yourself, maybe behind you as well, because it prevents you from fully connecting to spirit. So the cross of penetration is saying, allow yourself to be penetrated by spirit by dropping the armor. And that can be very challenging if you've had major trauma in your life. The benefit from doing it is the 57th gene key, which is the clarity of your intuition. And we're now moving into this time where Richard Rudd talks about the solar plexus coming online. So it is being activated so that we are going to have much stronger gut instinct and heart-centered intuition. So now our mind needs to take a second spot behind our intuition, allowing that feminine intuition to rise by listening deeply within. Then the 53 and 54, the 54 is the position of ambition. So now we have to be very careful about what our ambition is, because people with the 54th gene key are very good at creating material safety and security and success. They are very good at creating themselves a financial, solid, grounded base through the corporate world. Although that is dying. So now it's important for these people to really focus on their true spiritual aspirations and let the ambition for the material take a second place. Now you've got to be careful with the ambition for the spiritual, because the ambition for the spiritual can take you into doing way too many courses, way too many workshops. It's not about that anymore. All that you need to know is already inside you. So this is about remembering who you really are. And as this unfolds over the next few years, this understanding of who you really are from the depths of your being is coming from your deep soul's truth, which is going to emerge. And then the 53rd gene key is another self-sabotaging gene key. So now with the 53, as we're now standing in this gateway to the new earth, the fear of stepping into something new without knowing how it's going to work is the self-sabotaging shadow. So now, as we step through this gateway today, we've got to confront any fears we have about not knowing how it's going to work out. And we've got to go with the plan, go with the way it's being demonstrated to us, with an open heart and trusting ourselves that we will be able to cope and navigate through whatever happens. The great news is, through our lives, whatever's happened in our lives, we've created a toolbox of resources. We have all the resources we need to navigate through this new earth energy. So we have to trust that and trust the universal life force flow. And when you do, this gene key is the gene key of expansion and superabundance. It's a Jupiter gene key. In other words, when you let go of any fears you have about the future, it's going to be a magnificent future. So the only thing stopping your total success is you getting in the way of yourself. So just to finish then, the cross of the sleeping phoenix, this is my interpretation, not Richard's, but this is what I believe it means. That when we went through the fall from grace, the phoenix went to sleep because there was no point helping these human beings when they were lost. Then the phoenix keeps an eye on us to see where we are. And when the phoenix sees people beginning to wake up, the phoenix itself wakes up. and it destroys the old world, turns it to ashes, and then the new earth rises from those ashes. And that's what is just beginning right now. We're right in that turning point. So what I'm feeling very much is that since 2024 to 2027, that 3-year period is the transition time between the old world dying and the new world being fully embodied. So what we are being asked to do during the course of this year is to embody inside our physical body these new earth energy grid coming in. This is not about going out into woo-woo land or astral travel. It's none of that. This is about bringing more of your higher self into form so your soul will start running the show. No, no, Cindy, no, 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 no. The new Earth grid is emerging now, and it will be fully in place for that 400 years. So 2027 is when it will be fully embodied, the very beginning of the journey. We haven't got to wait 400 years, thank goodness. But good question. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Ooh, I love this. This is really empowering because we have our marching orders
We
and
do. Absolutely.
we have to be in the heart. We have to surrender and be in the heart and trust the universe. Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So now then, just take a look at this diagram and remember the 55th gene key is the gene key of the new age of Aquarius. So now then, Lauren, put on the third slide, the webinar slide. Okay, thank you. So this is where the gene keys for me gets really neat because I've just told you that the new Earth grid is when the 55th gene key is being illuminated by the sun. This is the gene key profile for today. And we chose this date because this is exactly 1 year away from the 55th gene key being activated in 2027. And it's going to be when the 55th.6 is fully embodied by us 1 year from now. So 1 year and 2 days. So we chose this. You'll now see that the outer gene keys, the 4 outer gene keys, are the 4 gene keys of the cross of the sleeping phoenix. They are being illuminated today. So what we've just talked about in terms of the new Earth grid is being activated in this very moment.
Wow.
You'll see I put down 10:30 because I was beginning my preparations then for this session. So this was the profile for today, right now. So now then we can say, okay, these are the guiding lights, if you like, for this next year. We've already talked about the 55, the 59, 34, and 20. So now what I do is look at the other keys involved, and I start to look at where there are key gene keys that are playing a role here. Now, for those people that don't know the gene keys, this is your birth profile, and Lauren sent a message out that you could look up your own profile, which looks exactly like this, but will have different numbers inside. And so there are 11 spheres, which are the main gene keys that you are living in this life. We have all 64, but the moment of your birth describes the 11 most important ones to you. And that's what I do in my one-on-one session, is to guide you through your own profile to see where the sticking parts are, the shadows, those recurring patterns, and how we can clear them to step up into the gifts, to live our lives in the gifts, which is the middle word of the 3. And then if you're really lucky, the so-called siddhi word, and it's not city, it's siddhi, you'll see Siddhi, which is your divine essence. And what that means is that as you go through this process, you can clear the shadows and start living in the gifts. You can't become the siddhis. You can't make yourself become the siddhis. They will descend upon you when it's time. So what we are doing is preparing ourselves for those higher frequency energies to embody in us. And it tends to come in short, small glimpses. So you may have a sudden feeling of complete peace, calm, harmony, bliss, ecstasy, rapture. These are the highest frequency energies. And if you start thinking about them, they go away because your mind can't connect with these higher frequency energies. So what we do is we just embrace that feeling. We just allow it to saturate our being. So now then, when I'm looking at this profile, the SQ in the very center is the first 7 years of our life. So this is what's beginning today, 14.1. It's the very beginning today. Line 1, 14th gene key. What's the 14th gene key? The shadow of compromise. It's where you have lost sight of your dream because of your life circumstances. Whereas in reality, you have this wonderful gift of competence, which means you are efficient, you are creative, you are flexible, and you're enthusiastic. Now, this is the great news, and I didn't make this up, Lauren. This is the actual profile, right? This is not to do with me personally, because the 14th gene key is the gene key in the wonderful word of bounteousness, which means the world is your oyster. When Richard writes about that, he talks about the Midas touch. Everything you touch turns to gold. Well, this is the gold frequency that we're moving into. So on this very first day of the new Earth grid, we've got the gold frequency working with us. Absolutely phenomenal. So this is the birth. It's our first 7 years of life. And then we come into the emotional body, which is the 49th gene key. And the 49th gene key is the gene key of rebirth. So here we are. We're rebirthing ourselves out into the world. It's phenomenal.
Mm.
And you'll see we've got the 49th gene key again in our attraction sphere. So this means that our rebirth is wrapped up in our emotional body and in our relationship field. So this is where we now clear out the tendency for a knee-jerk reaction. We need to let those go, and that's where that pausing and breathing comes in. And we respond intelligently, not reacting quickly. Now, the gift of this gene key is revolution. So we are engaged in a love revolution, not a fighting revolution. Really important that we're now going to work together as a team to bring this shift about. And it's not really revolution, because revolution suggests going round in circles. It's evolution, where we are rebirthing ourselves into a higher frequency. Then the 63rd gene key is our mental body developing. And the big challenge with the 63rd gene key is self-doubt. So really important in this new Earth grid that we don't have self-doubt. And what tends to happen when we have self-doubt is we go on a seeking the truth through inquiry. And that can only take you so far. A logical, sequential approach to the new Earth grid won't work. We've got to let go of the need to know and allow it all to unfold naturally and easily. And then you realize that self-doubt is part of the truth anyway. Self-doubt is simply telling us that this is important. So we have to allow it to be there and not allow it to stop us doing what we're planning to do. Just embrace the doubt. And that will lead you into the truth. Now then, the core wound is the 5.6. This is the family lineage wounding that you carry in your own profile. So this is our profile for today. And what does that mean? The line 6 is to do with isolation and separation. So now then, it's really important that none of us isolate ourselves and keep ourselves separate. Now, many of us on this spiritual path need time alone. And so what we've got to do is to find the balance between the way in which we live our lives in separation and isolation, quietly, in contemplation, in meditation, but then coming together in groups to support each other in the opening up into this new Earth energy. And that's what your program does so beautifully, Lauren. It brings people together through the New Earth One network. So people have the opportunity to do their own thing on their own and then come together when they feel the need for support. And this is the balance that we need to find in this new grid. And we also must not get isolated from our bodies. There's a tendency with this line 6 to go up and out of body and be disconnected, disengaged. So now whenever you're connecting to all the horrible stuff happening on the planet, make sure it doesn't take you out of body. So all of that stuff is disappearing, and it's really bad. It could not be any more depraved. So what we don't want to do is to connect with that. We want to be the neutral witness if we tune into it at all, and just let it go, because it's going to dissolve away. And there's more shocks to come. There's going to be more people involved than we don't even know about at all yet. And it's going to be very shocking. So we need to just acknowledge this is the truth. They need to be exposed so we can clear that energy. And so we need to make sure that we stay in our hearts fully grounded through this period. And the 5th gene key is impatience. And my goodness, how long have some of us been waiting for this? Is it ever going to happen? Well, it is happening. But the key thing about the 5th gene key is it requires patience. There's a divine timing at play. And many of us have been saying, why is it taking so long? It's so obvious. It's so clear. And yet, no, it isn't. It's still happening. So we require this divine timing trust that there is a reason why all this is happening the way that it is. So we just need to relax into that divine timing and let it unfold absolutely naturally and easily. So now we're going into the pearl sequence, the blue spheres at the top. And this is how we bring all of this inner learning out in the way in which we operate in the world. So now the 5.6 transforms into the biggest vision you can possibly have for yourself in the future, and having this patience. And that's what leads you into your higher expression. Then the 62.5, we saw the 62 in that old energy that we needed to let go of in that first diagram. Now, the 5th line in the culture, Richard Rudd did a new presentation on this culture a few months ago, and in it he talked about us creating a new mystic culture. And that new mystic culture was based upon the lines of the culture. And this is what he said, and this is for us today, remember, for all of us on this call. The 5th line, he said, are the people who are going to be the new leaders who will demonstrate freedom in the new mystic culture. So our precise role in our future work is to model freedom. That's it. We haven't got to become leaders on the stage. We're just going to be leaders within our own freedom. And the 62nd gene key I talked about before was the need to know and understand everything, which we've got to let go of. But there's a gift in this gene key, which I know, Lauren, you're going to love, because it's the gift of light language. And I know that you have a number of people on your show who work with light language. And people need to understand, and I'm sure your people have spoken about this, but light language is the sounds that people make through their voice where there are no words. Sounds like gobbledygook. But there's a sound frequency running through those notes which connects together light and geometry. So it's something that goes inside our DNA to activate it. So working with light language, sound frequency, crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, solfeggio frequencies, beautiful music, listening to light language, these are all part of the new Earth grid. And this is what Richard Rudd says about 2027. We are going to come into rhythmic resonance. And my image of that, which I just love, so I've just been to one recently, a classical music concert, where if you get there early, all the musicians are tuning their instruments or playing their difficult passages, and there's this cacophony of noise. Some people love it, some people hate it. So now the conductor comes out, taps the baton, and there's a pause. There's a stillness. There's a silence. And then the orchestra start playing this beautiful melodic music. That's what we are going to do as a humanity. We're going to come into rhythmic resonance. beginning in 2027. So we want to start practicing now by tuning into the sound frequencies. And then lo and behold, our final gene key for today is the 53.1, which I talked about was in that cross earlier of the cross of penetration. So now note this very carefully. This is our final contentment in life. And the gift is expansion and the city's superabundance. We can't fail so long as we don't get stuck in fear of not knowing. And the line 1, you'll see there, it says simplicity. Really important that we don't overcomplicate what we do next. We need to keep it straightforward and simple. And Richard talks about focusing on the essential. What is essential in life? Well, we have to have our physical day-to-day needs met, number 1. 2, what do we find beautiful? And 3, what do we find inspiring? And let everything else go. Keep it that simple. And most important of all is decluttering the mind. Creating space for this new earth energy to come in. Okay, so that's a very rapid run through the most important energies of what is coming right now. But now if it's okay, Lauren, you can take the images off and we can come into full screen. Because what I want to do now is to show you how the planetary systems have set this up for our success. So I'm just going to do a very brief reflection on when all of this started this year. Is that okay?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go back now, and people would want to be thinking about what took place in their lives at this time. I'm going back to January the 18th, which was the new moon in Capricorn at 28 degrees of Capricorn.
Of this year.
Of this year. Yep. And on that date, there was this amazing lineup of 6 planetary systems, all within 7 degrees of each other. A cluster right at the end of Capricorn and the beginning of Aquarius. So how this worked was just fantastic. I couldn't believe how wonderful this was. So right at the front was Pluto, which was already in Aquarius, sitting at 2-3 degrees. Now 2-3 degrees of Aquarius is the 41st gene key, which is the only start codon of all 64 keys. It starts something off brand new. It's like you've got the key and you put the key in the door and you turn the key and the door opens. That's the 41st gene key. So in the gene keys, January the 21st is the beginning of the new year. But Pluto was already there. So just imagine now that Pluto was holding that door open into the new earth energy, right? And then behind it at the back was Mars, then Mercury, both in Capricorn. The sun and the moon were the 28 degrees Capricorn. Venus was already in Aquarius. So they were lined up. And then what happened in the next few days was amazing. There was a procession of those planets through that gateway that Pluto was holding open. And these are all the personal planets. So this is a reflection of us inside. So Venus goes through first. She's the feminine. It's our values, our relationships, our money. Then it was the moon going through. That's our feelings and our emotions. Then it was the sun going through, which is our highest expression of our true divine nature. Then it was Mercury, which is our mind and our thinking and our communication. And then Mars was at the back, the Mars, the man, the masculine, driving the others through that gateway. And it all happened within a very, very short time. So this was like a real activation, opening the door into the new earth grid. Absolutely fantastic. And then we come through to the period which I'm sure you celebrated in your work, is the February the 1st, which is Imbolc. And Imbolc is the first signs of early spring. here in Victoria, where the snowdrops and the crocuses are out, the first buds are appearing on the trees. It's when the ewe's milk comes in for the lambing season. And it's the energy of Bridget, Bridget, the Irish goddess of this period of time. And when that happened, we were in the 19th gene key because we also had the full moon at that time. And the 19th gene key is a really important gene key, and it's the gene key of synesthesia. This is where we have an extra level of sensitivity in our being where our senses cross over each other. And I've had a number of sessions now where people have this synesthesia, and it's things like hearing the flowers open, tasting colour. I had one woman whose smelling sensitivity was so strong, she could smell the spiritual essence of the people around her. So she couldn't go to a shopping mall in the normal times. It was just too much, overwhelming. But this is also now amping up. So we are going to become more aware, and it's different for different people. I have it, and I don't have it very strong in that way, but I have it in my sense of tuning into people and a sense of who they are and what their needs are. So it's just an inner knowing, but it comes in many, many different forms. So that was also activated on that full moon. Then on February the 8th, we had the 49th gene key being activated by the sun. So the rebirth began. And then the real big energies kicked in on February 13th, 14th, when Saturn left Pisces. So now what we want to do is to think about the last 28 years. Going back to 1996, 1997 was when Saturn first entered Aries 28 years ago. And now what we want to do is look over the last 28 years and see where we've had our struggles, where we've had our challenges, where we've been faced with difficulties, because those are the patterns and the structures that we now have to make sure we have completely released. It's over, it's done. We can't carry any of those old energies with us into the new earth. Now, it hasn't got to be done instantaneously, but it does need to be done in the next few weeks.
Okay, let's repeat that then. So we're
Yep,
looking back at the last 28 years since
yep,
1996,
yep,
1997.
yep,
And isn't that interesting? That's to put that in perspective for people, that's when Hong Kong was given back to Chinese rule. All right,
right,
very interesting. So what you're saying is everything that we were challenged with, we're starting to see patterns around that, and we
yep,
have to reconcile those.
yep, and let them go in full forgiveness, in
Okay.
total acceptance. Because what's really important to understand is we are the people who are leading the way into this new earth. And we can't take any of that old stuff with us into the new earth. We've got to let it go. And that's what our responsibility is. Now, there will be some residual triggers. And when we get triggered, we need to just really drop into that space and think about what was it that triggered me? What was it that upset me? If we can, name it. And then you reflect back over these 28 years when something similar happened in the past.
Uh-huh.
Now, Lauren, I used to get annoyed with myself when I got triggered. I thought, I've been doing this work for 15 years now. How can I still get triggered? But then more recently, I realized that when I got triggered, it was because there was something inside of me that needed to emerge, something that needed to be seen, to be released. So I don't get triggered often, but when I do, I really pay attention to it and recognize this needed to happen. And that's when we play the role of victim, obviously.
Really quite a rebirth moment. It
Exactly.
explains it perfectly.
Now, what I did, just for people who, want to do how they're going to do this, a really good thing to do is a ceremony. And because it's the end of Pisces, it's the water element. So what I actually did on that time, on February the 13th, I live on the ocean. So I went for a walk along a flat, sandy beach, right along the edge of the water. And as I was walking, as the waves came in and as they receded, I let those old energies go with the ocean. Just take it away. Just let it go. And I just kept waving my stuff out into the ocean to be completely transmuted and cleared. Mother Earth loves what's our hoocha. She loves our dark stuff because she can then metabolize it. She can transform it into the good. So don't be worried about giving your stuff to the earth. She loves it.
Wow.
So then following that, on the 17th of February, we had that new moon, 28 degrees Aquarius, where again there was another lineup as the planets were moving out of Aquarius and into Pisces. And that was, of course, the annular solar eclipse. And the annular solar eclipse is when the moon is a long way from the earth. And so it doesn't quite cover the sun. So we have this ring of fire around the sun. It's a beautiful thing to see. But what was really interesting about this solar eclipse, Lauren, was that virtually nobody saw it. It was over the southern tip of South America, the southern tip of Africa, some of the southern islands, and Antarctica. 99% of humanity didn't see it. There was a privacy, there was a secret happening going on in that moment. It was a resetting moment. But now on the total lunar eclipse in 2 weeks' time on March 3rd, virtually everybody's going to see it. Really interesting. What is being choreographed on our behalf. But of course, that day was the day that you began the talk with, which was the day the fire horse came into being. And the fire horse is taking this shift of the slow unraveling wood snake into this galloping horse into the sunset. And it's full of fire. It's courageous. It's strong. It's getting beyond any limitations. It's the Aries fire horse. It's like nothing can stop me. I'm taking off and I'm bold. That's what the fire horse represents. Now, we've got to be a bit careful that the fire horse doesn't run away with us. Because if you get too engaged with the fire horse, it can lead to burnout. It's a fiery energy. And it actually happened in the 30th gene key, which is the gene key of the fire of desire. So there's this massive fire energy building, the phoenix rising out of the ashes. The fire is being reborn, which is phenomenal, wonderful, so long as we can contain it within ourselves. Richard Rudd actually did a YouTube on the fire horse, and what he was talking about was holding the reins of the fire horse. You don't want to hold them too tight because the horse will rear up. You don't want to let them go because it will just gallop off and you'll lose control. So we want to hold those reins just gently and firmly so we can gallop off into the future under control. And that's what that fire horse is all about. But it's giving a tremendous initial impetus into this final year before the full embodiment of the gene key moment in time, if you like, the 55th gene key, line 6, February 23, 24, 2027. So that's where the fire horse literally kicked it in. It was like the starting gate, and all the horses were lined up, and up went the gates, and off they went. And that's where we are right now. We've started that journey. Now, I should just mention that the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is happening in the 25th gene key. And so another understanding for us to have is the 25th gene key is the shadow of constriction. And that shadow is when we're not feeling the love that we need. And it comes as a tightness in the upper chest between the heart and the throat. So whenever you have that feeling, it's the feeling that I'm not loved. So now that's ending. And now it's about self-love. It's about fully accepting yourself for who you are, in total forgiveness of all that's taken place. Because when you do that and you start loving yourself, it becomes universal love. It's the love of all of creation. And if enough of us do this, then the love will overwhelm everything else. and it will be the end, and we will return to the Garden of Eden, which is what this is all about. I haven't mentioned the 15th gene key because it hasn't come up in all of the stuff we've talked about, but I do need to talk about it because the 15th gene key is the gene key of our deepest connection to Mother Earth, to nature. And it's very much connected with the Schumann resonance, which is the heartbeat of natural Mother Earth. And it was fixed at 7.8 hertz until about 2 years ago. Then it suddenly started amping up to these much higher frequencies. In fact, the people who measure it at one point said this couldn't be the Schumann, it was up over 100 hertz. So we know then that Mother Earth is herself transforming into her new self. So that's why we want to align ourselves so closely with her. And when you do, you will notice that nature will start getting magnetized towards you. And you'll start having these wonderful experiences with nature. And just a really simple one I had just last week. I was in my car waiting for someone, and 3 consecutive days, the hummingbird came down to completely bare branches on a tree. And it went round the tree as if it was sucking the nectar out of the flowers. And I'm thinking, what's this hummingbird doing? And then we had a gathering with a guy who's a photographer of hummingbirds. And what he said was they're probably doing one of 2 things. They're finding these tiny little bugs, these little grubs that gives them their protein, or they're collecting silk from the spiders' webs to create the inner of their nests. So I had this double whammy. I had the whammy of watching this happen just in beautiful stillness, but then the explanation of why they were doing what they were doing. So it was just this beautiful double moment with nature. And note, the understanding came after the initial experience. The initial experience was the awe and wonder, then the explanation came. And that's what we're going to find is happening more and more. So we sit in awe and wonder of nature and of life, and then we'll be shown what we need to know. Now, at the same time, we're having these massive solar ejections coming through the sun. And Richard Rudd said that when we really engage with this 55th gene key, the first sign will be the sun going through its transformation. And that is already happening. The sun itself is changing. Some people talk about a pole shift in the sun. Some people talk about these massive solar ejections. It's all true. And we are being bombarded by these high frequency energies coming through the sun. So we are being compressed into our diamond selves from above and from below. And that's why it's so important for us to self-care, to be kind to ourselves, to take naps when we need them, to step out of busyness, to step out of being too many people around us, to have that quiet downtime so we can really work with our inner world, because our inner structure is changing. We are becoming the new human. We are becoming the Aquarian human. And that's what this is about. And it's never happened before on the planet where humanity has been alive through one of these major transitions. So we've got to honor that and be so grateful for the fact that we are here to be in this transition time. It should be the greatest feeling that you have. And isn't it amazing that we managed to contrive this situation where we could sit here today, all appear at the same time in the same place, and talk about what's actually really happening on the planet? That itself is amazing. And that tells you all of the interconnectedness that we truly are, that we are these synchronistic beings of light who are coming together in this wonderful future. There is nothing to be concerned about. Richard Rudd has seen the new earth in embodiment, and he said it's beyond our belief. It's beyond any expectations we had. What he hasn't been shown is how we get there. So we know we've got another year of complete and utter chaos in the world as all of this gets cleared out once and for all. But those people from the old world, those dark energies, will not exist in our awareness in the future. They'll be in a totally different realm and dimension. And we're only going to connect with those people who are on this journey with us, moving into the fifth dimension. So then just the final piece to mention, there's a couple of things. One, the total lunar eclipse on March 3rd. This is interesting. Where I am on the Pacific coast, the total solar eclipse is going to be at 3:33 on March 3rd, 3:3. So we've got 5 threes lined up, which again
Wow.
is a master number. But again, this is another great opportunity to bring completion and closure to the old energies and bring ourselves into the future energy. Now, it's happening in the 63rd gene key, which I talked about before, about self-doubt. So this is a great time to erase any doubt that you have about yourself moving into the future. Then on April the 17th, there's going to be a massive planetary alignment in Aries, 7 planets in Aries, 3 in Taurus. And then really interesting, I don't know what this means yet, but I probably will find out eventually. But July the 25th, there are going to be 4 planets at exactly 4 degrees. Neptune in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, Jupiter in Leo, Uranus in Gemini. This has got some profound significance, and I don't yet know what it is. But 4 is usually to do with the 4 pillars, and these 4 energies that are going to be cooperating with each other, I think, to form pillars for this new Earth coming in. Okay, so perhaps, Lauren, we should open up for questions. Do we have time?
We have time, and I encourage everyone, ask some questions. I have been taking notes. This is such powerful information. We can listen to you all day, really. You are giving us the direction, you're giving us the guidance, the roadmap through the chaos, and so I'm so glad that we met today to talk about this, because since the last time we met, it's just been wow, it's just everything is coming about. So, all right. Okay. Allowing the new earth codes to come in then is really sitting in the awe and wonder of the beauty of the world around us.
Exactly. That's it. That's all we have to do.
And dreaming that biggest vision of ourself.
Yes.
What I just want to say, in some of the past year, going back to doing some of that work, when I have been very strongly or heavily meditating, focusing on that goal. And when I started that on a regular basis, like becoming a master of it or embodying it truly, that's when my old world started crumbling. Relationships changed. This whole thing, my 20-year YouTube channel got crypto scammed. And so it's because of that vision that's making something had to give, really.
That's right. Exactly. You had to create space for the new. And again, what appears to be a really difficult, challenging situation has to happen. And again, in my sessions, I've noticed a lot of people are having to leave their day jobs, leaving their relationships, because they're just not of this new Earth grid. And there's a misvibrational frequency that can't be matched. Doesn't matter what you do, you can't bring it back together. So you have to let it go. And then that brings all the fear of not having enough financial support, typically. And one of the challenges, as you know, Lauren, for light workers in the past is not being supported financially. And so now that's going to change, because so many people are going to be waking up and not understanding what's happening to them, that people who get it, who are already ahead of the curve, are going to become very important people to help others get settled into the new Earth grid and understand, just like we've done today, this comfort that comes with knowing we're right on track and having that total confidence and belief in ourselves, we're okay, and we can help everybody else be okay as well. And as you
Hmm.
know, some people are not ready to hear the message, and we don't want to try and convince anybody because that backfires on us. We want to focus on those people who already get it or those who are awakening to get it.
Very interesting. Okay, and am certain everyone listening is a new Earth leader because we've been doing the work and we get it. So we
Yeah,
will be holding the gates open for others. So now this time is really important to stay focused on, well, to dream that biggest vision, to relax and slow down and take that personal time, but to also step into service, step into service.
absolutely.
I
Yes.
love how you said, check your values, know what your values are.
Yeah.
Big time, know what our values are. All right. There is a question. Cindy has a question. Cindy, I want to allow you to talk. You can talk, goddess. You can unmute yourself, Cindy, if you want to ask that question. Hi.
Thank you. I am excited when anyone calls me a goddess. Oh my goodness. Um, I'm a lover of learning and reading, and it's just brings me tremendous joy. So with this refraining from a need to know, does that mean we should like pull back from those studies? Or just a matter of keeping that in balance with the, I guess, vibrational inner work that's anchored in our heart versus intellectually?
That's a great question, Cindy. And you may not like the answer. we we do need to pull back from doing all the different researching and learning that you've talked about, but we
Mhm.
don't need to can it completely. So what I've done is I've cut back to only listen to those people that I feel are of the highest frequency and not too much, because obviously I'm still creating lots of information from research. So
Mhm.
I'm still doing that, but I'm making sure that I'm also spending that other time in my inner world and out in nature. So it's a balance. So
Okay.
cutting back and making sure it's not taking over, particularly that your mind isn't too dominant.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
I saw a very important question come up about education and the children. And I've just gone through a very interesting situation in my own family because I was a school principal and I left because of the system where the kids were being conned into that world. And my daughter and my son-in-law, who's a school principal, he's gone back into the system to try to change it. And it's been an absolute disaster for him personally because they weren't ready for it. Very challenging. And then lo and behold, my older grandson, who's 14, was given the opportunity to go to my old school, private academic school, university prep school. And he is absolutely thriving. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The old system works for some kids, but not many. My other grandson couldn't go near that school because he just loves life and he plays and it's all about relationship. They could not be more opposite. So we've got to be very careful about condemning the old educational system completely because it does work for some kids and they have great success so long as they understand they're playing a game. The problem with it is back in the day when I was the principal and all these very wonderful, nice, obedient kids were all going to university, doing all these APs, becoming doctors, dentists, lawyers, professionals, getting married, having their kids, and now they're trapped because they can't get out of that system and they don't enjoy doing it. It's a real dilemma. And that was why I left actually, because I saw these most beautiful kids falling for that game. Now, luckily, my grandson has got parents and a grandparent who gets it. So he's getting the balance of the two. But the education he's getting is phenomenal. So again, we've got to be very careful about not going too far in the other direction. It's a great question. I think we are going to see massive change in the system, and it will become much more personally directed. And that is happening in some schools already, where there are people, educators, who are giving the kids the ball to look after their own education and how they're going to do it, and how the teachers become resources rather than teachers. And that's the direction this is going to go. It's going to become like an individualized learning plan.
Yes, and we're already starting to see so many New Earth leaders coming up with wonderful ideas and programs to support the star children,
Yeah,
as they call
exactly.
them. Wow. Lori, you are unmuted. You can speak your voice. Maybe, Lori. I think you're unmuted. Maybe not. Okay. There's another question. What is the star from Lori? Or did you have something first, Peter? No?
Well, I was just looking at Laurie's name, Laurie Dragon,
Lori Dragon
because
2022.
because I didn't talk about the dragons, but as she's shown up, I think I need to, as
Yes,
we follow the
please.
synchronicities. So when we were talking,
Let's talk about synchronicities. The dragons are, in my personal experience, when I interface with the dragons, things happen, things shift in a huge way. 30
right,
minutes after I got done interviewing Jaden Say, a golden cosmic dragon, that's when this whole hacking experienced, and it had to happen. So
right.
go ahead and talk about the dragons.
So this was through Kerry Kay. Do you know Kerry Kay? South African person who's very good at understanding the false matrix. So this is
Ah,
her. This is her information, not mine. But it was very specific, and it really fitted in with me because I was given this gift of. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to catch the. This is a clear orb. Oh, there we are.
inside it is laser cut laser. Wow, it's a
It's a
dragon.
dragon. It's a dragon inside. There it is. You see it?
Yes.
So I got this gift, and within a couple of days, Kerry Kay was talking about that massive earthquake that took place in Russia, the 8.8 earthquake. And what she said was when that earthquake happened, this massive red dragon woke up. And this is one of the original dragons who oversaw us in the Garden of Eden.
Wow.
There were seven of them. And like the phoenix, I think the red dragon is the phoenix, they went to sleep. And where they went to sleep was in the mountain ranges.
Yeah.
So when that earthquake happened, it woke up that dragon. And then within a few days, there were three more dragons that woke up. And then a few days later, there were three more dragons that woke up. And what she also said was that this energy was basically breaking open these old Saturn structures in the mountains. Well, amazingly, a few days later, I got a YouTube that came through, as they do, and it was talking about when that earthquake happened in Russia, there was an awakening of the Pacific Northwest Cascade Range. And what they said, these were actual scientific data, this was not woo-woo stuff. And what they said, the whole range from Mount Baker in the north, which is right opposite where I am, down to Mount Shasta in the south, it started with Mount Rainier, and this is their language, not mine. They said it was like a series of ringing bells going down the whole backbone of that mountain range. And they said that they thought it was going to lead to some massive volcanic eruption, but it didn't. It calmed down. So it was just the awakening of that mountain range. So now I think the dragons associated with that range have now woken up. So the dragons are now working very closely with us. And what Kerry Kay said was that they were really, really ticked off because the dark side had taken this down much deeper than was agreed to.
Uh,
So here's another challenging point that she made for people to contemplate. She said the reason that we got kicked out of the Garden of Eden was because it was all too easy. It was all too comfortable, that we were living in this very luxurious energy and we weren't learning anything. So we agreed with the dark side to give them control. So we would go into suffering because suffering was the only way we could evolve. But having been given control, the dark side then took it way down deeper than what they'd agreed to. So that's why we're seeing all this desperate, dark depravity on the planet. So now the dragons have said they're going to be flying around, bringing all that up to the surface to be released. We still need to do the work to create the Garden of Eden in the future, but they're going to show us what needs to be cleared. So I thought as we got that message from Laurie Dragon, I'd better bring them out.
Um, for my reference and others who may not know, when was that Russian earthquake?
Um,
Roughly, was it recent or
it was a few months ago now.
a few months ago? I missed
I'm
that.
going to
And
go. I'm going to go back to August last year, I think, roughly.
okay, someone said, yeah, Cindy was in Mount Shasta in July and August last year, and the energy was
Oh, there you
phenomenal.
go. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Excellent.
Wow.
And we just had a Sirius dragon show up. So now another another great moment is Jupiter is going to be turning direct. It's in Cancer, and it's going to turn direct. I can't find the date at the moment. I might be able to. But when it turns direct, it's going to turn direct at 15 degrees of Cancer. And 15 degrees of Cancer is where Sirius resides in the zodiac. So, so when she was talking about being a Sirius dragon, that energy is going to be really significant when Jupiter turns direct later in the year. I'm not exactly sure when. I might be able to find it. But that is another very important moment that's going to take place.
Wow, Lori, you are you had a lifetime in Sirius as a dragon. Wow. All right. Let's see. Daniela, I am going to allow you to unmute yourself. Anybody who wants to ask a question, please drop it in our chat.
Yeah,
Hi.
hello. And
Hi, Daniela.
just want to say thank you. I've just started the journey in the Gene Keys, doing the Sage program as well, and just really feeling just a deep calling to immerse myself here in the Gene Keys, and I'm doing so already, and it's so powerful. But I also, when you mentioned that not everyone's ready to to do this type of shadow and release work, let's say in the coming weeks. What's the significance of doing it now compared to, for some people it might just take longer. Can you speak to that at all?
I can, yes. So we're back in that 49th gene key. And in that city of the rebirth, Richard Rudd talks about the forking in the path. So there are two distinct paths that people are going to take. They're either going to stay in the 3D or move into the 5D. And why this is important now is those two paths are moving further apart. So for those people who are sitting on the fence who have not yet made that decision, it's going to get more difficult to make that decision as this moves forward in time. If you like, the 5D is going to get more strongly embedded in. So those people in the 5D are going to be really connecting deeply with each other. And that's going to create a bigger vibrational gap with the 3D. And so some people have already decided they're definitely not coming into the 5D. They're going to stay in the old world, in the old safety and security they think it brings. And others of us are certain that we're moving into 5D. But there are people who are sitting on the fence. And it's going to be more difficult as this opens up in the future to cross one from one to the other. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And, that regards just, wondering, my partner's also doing the Gene Keys, and he's just not quite as engaged yet. So that's just helpful for me to perhaps see whether or not he's ready to engage more in this. And then when we look at it, though, for example, my children who are in their 20s and are aware of things but not quite on the path, how does that is it just trusting that there'll be cycles and in time that
So,
they'll have more, that they'll feel it through my own embodiment or that of the world around me?
so Daniela, it's really important to not have any judgment around it. because we don't know what's really going on inside people. And as it says in the Bible, in the twinkling of an eye. So we don't want to hold anybody in a particular position. We want to let everybody be where they are. The good news is, Daniela, that the information that I have got is that children will tend to go with the more advanced parent, including animals. So again, the more advanced you are, the more likely your kids are to come with you. And if people have pets as well, they're going to come along with you as well. And so from my point of view, holding to the highest frequency that I can on my own behalf and holding that space for my family without interfering with their process becomes really important. And as a mom, it's hard to not get involved and do too much. But we want to hold that truth in our hearts that they all have to make their own decision and just hope that they will come with us as a result of our holding them in that sacred space.
That's super helpful. I appreciate it. I'm fortunate in my situation and that they're around me and they're 20. They're very well aware of what I'm doing and just and I've got yes, I'm very, very, very appreciative of this and look forward to doing a private with you.
Great, excellent. So can I just make a comment about the sage, Lauren?
Please.
This is the retreat that Richard Rudd is currently doing, and he's repeating the Golden Path over a 15-month period. But what's really significant about this, he's going much more into his mystical world, and he's written a book which has not yet been published, where he's taken every single gene key and every single line to create this book of a more mystical, magical process. And each gene key and each line has its own little piece. And I'll tell you, my life's work is the 44.2. And what he said about the 44.2 is the mystical sister. And this means that my work is about working with the sisterhood, all the wonderful feminine principled people that I'm connected with. And it's not romantic, it's sisterly love, not sexual love. And to me, it just is so absolutely who I am. It couldn't be any more precise. So he's got one of these for every single line of every single gene key. And there is going to be a book, it must be a huge book, coming out at some time in the future, this year, I think. And it's called The Sage.
Wow. Cool. Yeah. And Daniela, thank you for sharing that. That is, something about what you were sharing, both of you, is that I really believe, as you said, Peter, when we are in that vibration, I guess it's our vibration is the most important. And people will match it and come with us. I really do believe that most of my son, he's going to be 25 next month. And I believe that he knows he's different. Like the problems of the world do not affect him like they affect me. A former journalist that looks at the world and thinks it's all like, wow. But I think lots of the new kids are wired that way. So it's us in this middle. We're the old school. And so the younger kids, especially born at 2000 and above, are already wired into the 5D. So no, can you reflect on the 3D and the 5D? It's really love and fear, right? So
Yep.
We still have to put food on the table. We still have to pay bills. We still have to use money at this time. So there's this balance between 5D, but still walking in 3D. So your suggestion on that is being in the heart at least 51% of the day, right?
And being conscious of what the 3D is unfolding. What is the 3D manifesting? What is it showing us? So living in the world as we have to, as you said, paying bills and living our lives according to that, but being consciously aware of our involvement in it rather than being blind to what we're doing. and then
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to step into that higher frequency whenever we can,
Okay.
being very aware of whenever we drop in frequency. And I've noticed myself just very recently, I was in two different groups, and in those groups, there were a couple of people who were not of this frequency. And I just felt my energy drop instantaneously, and I just wanted to leave. I didn't, and I held my space in that space inside my heart, but I just didn't want to be there because I could just feel this energy dropping as a result of that interaction. And they weren't nasty people, they were good people, but you could just feel that energy wasn't a match.
Wow. You know what? As you were talking there, it's like, lately, these algorithms, when you go on YouTube or Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook, but because I had to do a new YouTube channel, because of what I'm clicking, now I'm really seeing this is part of the bigger picture for me to see, actually, and to put a little ants in my pants to boost me up and give me energy to go forward. But when I see, like, looking at like AI slop, I guess is what they're calling it, um, there's a lot of junk out there. And so that brings the vibration down, right? And so I think, like, looking at a YouTube channel and you see these very crazy clickbait thumbnails, that's bad energy. That's 3D. So we got to get, like, just not interested in this channel. Do not show me this content,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Really
Yeah,
have to
totally.
watch that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've just been asked a question about the star pearl.
Yes.
And so let me explain that. So this actually goes back a number of years, back to, I think it was 2017, when we were in Findhorn to do the Pearl sequence. And Richard Rudd suddenly out of the blue said he was creating 3 new spheres to create a star Merkaba within the Pearl sequence. So that now there are 3 extra spheres which create this Star of David shape, which in 3D is the Merkaba. And so he's brought in these 3 extra spheres. One is to do with how we relate to the people in our lives. One is to do with our creativity. And one is to do with our stability. Well, as soon as I saw that and I heard the word Merkaba, this was back in 2017, I realized that what Richard was planning to do was to bring our personal Merkaba field in alignment with the Earth's Merkaba field, because this is all about our alignment with the shifting energy of the Earth itself. So this star pearl was brought out, I believe, for that reason, to connect us into this Merkaba energy, in other words, a field of consciousness. Now, the great news is I'm in it and others people on this call are in it. So you are in the field of consciousness, whether you like it or not. So you can just tune in to the gene keys at any time and feel into this consciousness, because it's now operating right through till after February 2027. And that's the beauty of this energy, right? It's now becoming a field of consciousness of this higher frequency. So we can tap in any way we like. Rupert Sheldrake called it the morphogenetic field. And now we're tapping into this morphogenetic field of the higher consciousness of Mother Earth. And Richard, I believe, set this up for that very purpose.
Very good. Alicia, she has a question. Can you offer any more on releasing the old ways? 3 major things coming up for me since January: codependency, no more, all my closest relationships, long patterns, health, autoimmune, and disdain for job. Yes, releasing the old ways.
So codependency, what was the second one?
Health,
Health,
autoimmune, and
autoimmune, right.
and disdain for job.
Yeah, the disdain for job is very, very common amongst people on this path because it doesn't fit with what we're talking about today. The vibrational match isn't there, and you often get hierarchical top-down leadership, which creates codependency. So you even have codependency in the workplace with your boss if you're not careful. So sadly, in some ways, but wonderfully in other ways, people are having to leave their jobs. People are having to have the confidence they can go and do something else and not get stuck in that old system. So a lot of it's to do with that fear of not knowing what it's going to be like in the future if I step out of that place. But I can tell you, many people in my sessions have stepped out, and it's been a wonderful thing. I stepped out in 2005 from my completely safe job for a lifetime,
Mm.
but I knew I couldn't stay. And I had a real tough couple of years. And now it was the best decision I ever made because I'm now doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Me too. 20 years ago. Yep.
Yeah.
I watched that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? And I came
Yeah.
home and I quit my job. Wow.
Now, the great news about the codependency is when you step out of that, it leads to that synesthesia I mentioned earlier. So there's a wonderful gift waiting for you when you release codependency. And that's about creating clear boundaries because people who have that level of sensitivity, the edges are blurred. So they need to find where does my edge end and the next person begin and create that clear boundary and don't overdo it for other people. And then your sensitivity will actually increase. It seems to be a paradox. And the autoimmune is when you're turning that energy in against yourself. I've noticed I do quite a lot of work with people with autoimmune, and it's actually that 34th gene key we spoke of earlier, where that very strong, powerful inner energy gets turned in against themselves, and that creates the autoimmune. So the way to resolve that is to be really kind and loving and compassionate to yourself and relax, knowing this is all going to end up really well. And the more we can relax and trust, the easier our lives will get.
I hope that helps, Alicia. Boundaries. Wow, boundaries is a huge one. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Did we get to everyone's question? Yes, here is a link where you can go get a session with Peter, and there's a code. Use the code THANKS11 and you will get a discount because you registered for this course today. All right, cool. I think everyone should do a session with you at least once a year. And I'm overdue. I'm overdue myself. And boy, it would have been helpful to kind of see what's coming down the pike. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that more and more people are coming back for a second, third session. So typically the first session we go over the profile and then stuff happens. It's an energetic transmission, right? So, and then later on, probably a couple of months later or even longer, people will come back and then look at what's happened since the first session to see what shifts have taken place and how we can go deeper into their profile.
I'm very excited for New Earth. And so I encourage people to listen to this again and to absorb it and to get busy. Well, no, not get busy, but to anchor in the New Earth codes, to anchor in, to stabilize those codes, to ground those codes, to embody your soul, and to be at ease and grace with all of it. Again, I'm just giving a huge sigh of relief.
Right.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
also, don't forget to have fun. Lighten up, everybody.
Yes, you know what? Joel Cool came through in a channel. This is really funny. And he said one year, he's like, and this is even before the pandemic. He just says, everyone wants to ascend, but y'all need to lighten up.
Exactly.
Y'all need to laugh. Come on. Nobody's
Yep.
laughing.
Exactly.
So enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. All right. Have fun and be enjoy. You know, that's the number one thing from a lot of spiritual teachers. They're like, no matter what happens, I'm going to be in joy. I'm going to choose joy. We choose
Yep.
joy. Choose joy. You know, if you hit a bump in the road, a pothole in the road, laugh at it. Laugh at it. It's not Pollyanna or it's not bypassing it. It's just seeing, wow, okay, that was cool. Laugh at it. Laugh at the funny things in our life. Laugh at the Laugh, if we play games and video games or whatever and we lose or something happens, laugh at that. Laugh at life. Okay.
Laugh at ourselves.
Laugh at ourselves. Maybe we're all going to be great comedians because comedians know how to laugh at themselves very well, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah.
Peter, final thoughts as we say goodbye.
You've just done a beautiful summary. You've done it for me. Thank you.
Yay. All right. Thank you, beautiful hearts, for joining us. And we look forward to our next time with you. And thank you for anchoring in these codes of love for New Earth. Thank you, Peter.
My pleasure. Many blessings to everyone.
Blessings, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye. Join us live tomorrow for another episode in this Quantum Conversation experience with Peter Tung. We'll be talking about the summer solstice and the second half of 2026.
This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.